I am joined live by Augie Meyers. How are you, Augie?
I'm doing fine. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about how all this got started, how you met Doug and how you started Sir Doug and Sir Douglas Quintet.
Well, we got to go way back in 1952. That's when me and Doug met. We were 12 years old. His parents used to trade at my mama's grocery store. And he was into football and baseball, and he wanted baseball cards, and my mama had just stacks of this stuff they were selling, 5 cards and a piece of bubble gum for a nickel. And so he'd come back there and we'd go through this stuff to get the cards he wanted. And he said, I play guitar and sing, and I said, well, I play a little piano and guitar. So we just became friends, and then I guess I was 14 or 15, I started a band, and he already had his band. And then when I wasn't playing, I'd go see him play. When he wasn't playing, he'd come see me play. And then we opened the show for the Dave Clark 5 in 1964 in San Antonio. I opened the show with my band, and then Doug came on in Dave Clark 5. But I had the only Vox organ in America at that time. And theirs broke, so Dave Clark 5 used mine. But after the show was over, Huey Moe was there to see the show. He's from Houston, from Winnie, Texas, actually. And he said, Doug, you have long hair, and Augie, you have long hair. Why don't y'all put a band together and get an English name and come up with something, and let's see what we can do. Well, Doug came up with Sir Douglas, and I came up with Quintet because we had a 5-piece band. And that's the start of Sir Douglas Quintet.
And so the English name, did they want you to pretend to be English?
Well, they thought we were from England at first. I mean, till we did Hullabaloo show, and then Trini Lopez said, I can't lie on national television. These guys are from my home state in Texas. Doug said, we got busted.
How'd you get started with the Vox? How'd you end up being one of the only people with a Vox organ?
Well, I saw it in the magazine, and the only reason I liked it because the keys were reversed black and white, And I said, man, I'd like to get one of those, and I'd asked my friend in the San Antonio Music. I said, man, can I get one of these? He said, they're from England. Let me see. So he wrote a letter back in that days, and this was in 1962, 63. And about a month and a half later, he got a letter back and said, I can get you one, but they're very expensive. I said, how much are they? He said, $285 with freight. And I said, I want one. And so he got me one. It took about a couple of months to get it. But I had the only one here. Only reason I wanted it was because the keys were white, they were black. It was just different. And after that, Fender amplifiers came out with what they called a super reverb. And so I bought one of them. That's what I was playing it through. And we had a sound we liked. I mean, we didn't figure on the sound. It just happened. Then we went to England when She's About to Move Her was big in England. John Lennon and Paul McCartney came to see us, and George Harrison was with them, and to see how did we get our sound out of our Vox organ. And I said, play it, and they went and played it, and they didn't have reverb amps in England at the time. And so, excuse me, and they said, man, we love this sound. So that's where and 2 weeks later, I think the Beatles, Paul said they bought like a dozen super reverb amps, but all the stores had them all over in England after that. Which reminds me, Fender should have accompanied me for something for that, but they never did.
Well, your keyboard playing has a lot of elements of conjunto music in it. How did that come in to influence you so much?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Your organ playing has a lot of conjunto influence in it. Especially, you can hear it more in some songs than others, but occasionally you can hear that influence. And how did you get?
My dad, only music my dad ever listened to, and he was a gringo. I mean, he wasn't Spanish, but he talked Spanish. He said, man, if you play this kind of music, you'll go somewhere. He didn't listen to nothing but conjunto. So I grew up listening to conjunto and country music. But my main influence back in those days was Jimmy Reed, who we become friends right before he died. I played with him in Houston for 4 days, and he was my main inspiration. Jimmy Reed was.
You've played with a lot of different musicians. Bob Dylan is a big fan of yours. How did you end up playing?
Well,
with
we met
Bob
him
Dylan?
in 1963. Become friends, and then when me and Doug, and at that time he was living in California, but he wasn't going under Bob Dylan. It was just Robert Zimmerman, call him Bobby. And in those days, I mean, you know, you meet people. It's like I know Ray Benson, Stevie Ray Vaughan, you know, Jimmy Vaughan. I know all those people, but we're just friends. I mean, if nobody, oh wow, there they are. You know what I mean? We were just another musician, and that's the way Bob Dylan was back in those days. We were just become friends. And then when me and Doug came out in '65 with She's About a Mover, Sir Douglas Quintet, he said we were his favorite garage band. And then he met us, and he met me again. He didn't know I was in the band. And over the years, he just called and said, hey, man, bring your magic box to Florida. We're going to cut an album. We'll bring it to New York. You know, so I've done several albums with him.
There's a movie out, a new movie about Doug Sahm and Sir Douglas Quintet called Sir Doug and the Genuine Texas Cosmic Groove. I spoke with Joe Nick Patowski, but in that movie, it's so interesting. But in that movie, one of the things they mentioned was She's About a Mover wasn't originally titled She's About a Mover?
She's a body mover.
She's a body mover, but that was too risque. That was too much for them.
Oh, back in those days. I mean, back in the 60s, you look at Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz. I Love Lucy. They had to sleep in twin beds on television. You couldn't say the word pregnant on television in those days. Look what they say now, you know.
Those early years in Sir Doug, those years before and after Doug's arrest for marijuana that, you know, rocked his family life, what were those years like in terms of the band growing? Did you feel that the band was becoming bigger and bigger?
Well, I mean, you know, we got busted in '65 for 2 joints. We were facing 7 to 10 years in the state penitentiary back in those days. Today we'd be a hero. But, I mean, we couldn't leave Texas for 3 years. We didn't go to prison, but we couldn't leave Texas for 3 years. After 3 years was up, we all moved to San Francisco and cut Mendocino, which sold like 6-7 million records that year. So we didn't make any money. It just got us out of debt.
What was the difference in the band vibe or how you worked together in California versus Texas?
Well, we were the same band. We just, you know, 3 years later, I mean, after we broke up, I started a band called Lord August and the Visions of Light, and I just played in a club in San Antonio for 2.5 years called the Pussycat, just to support my family. And everybody was just doing their own trip because we couldn't leave Texas. And after our probation was over, everybody just went back to California. That's when we cut Mendocino and got back together. But we were all friends. We remained friends for all the years. And got the same band back together.
What was that like, reuniting the band? How did you guys usually work together? Was it really collaborative, or did it change over the years?
Well, not really changed. I mean, you know, we did our stint in California, and then all of a sudden we decided to come back to Texas. And Doug said, "Man, we got to do something different." I said, "Why don't you get a bajo and I'll get an accordion? Let's play some conjunto music." And that's what we did. We just changed things around. It was still a quintet. Even the Texas Tornadoes, but most of the band in there was a quintet.
Yeah, let's talk about how you helped found the Texas Tornadoes.
Well, they used to always call Doug the Texas Tornado because he always whirled around, you know, constantly. You know, if you ever knew Doug, you know, it was like, I mean, he was like a mental horse running off in 7 different directions at one time, you know. So, I mean, even today, I'm playing tomorrow in Pearsall, Texas, and the bass player's playing with me is Jack Barber, who was with the quintet in the 60s. Was that 50 years ago? I mean, we're still friends. He's playing with me now. I mean, we still got the Tornadoes. Tornadoes do maybe 4 gigs a month, and with my band, I do maybe 3 or 4 gigs a month. So, you know, we're all friends. You know, when the Tornadoes get on stage, we look at each other. I mean, we laugh. We don't sit there. We're serious. We're serious players, but we're all friends. We've been friends over 50 years. 55. I'm 75 years old. You know, but it's not your age that matters. It's how you matter it. So, I mean, you know, we're all in our 70s, but we've been friends since we were teenagers.
Was it hard getting everyone back together?
No.
It was easy.
All you do is make a phone call. Hey, man, you want to play? Oh, yeah, man, let's get together, you know.
And what about your solo work? Can you tell me a little bit about that? Because it's been decades now you've been putting out your own stuff.
Well, I had a song some years back, 20 years ago called Hey Baby Que Paso. is still one of the forerunners in today's music, and no matter where I go, people want to hear it. So I do a lot of that stuff, and I'm doing country. And I'm working on a new album now. It's just me and my piano, my vocals, and I have violins and cellos, no bass, drums, or guitar in it.
And you're working on that album right now?
Yeah, I've got a 7-song cut on that album, and I'm getting ready to do a video, just my comedy stuff. I love to do comedy. I've been asked to play in the comedy clubs, and I won't do it. Because you go to a comedy club, they expect you to make them laugh. But I don't like to do that. I like to just go play at a place, play my music, and in the meantime tell jokes, and people laugh at them. I have more fun doing that. Because they expect the band just sit there and play music and not tell jokes, but I like to do a little bit of both.
Tell me about your time in Sweden.
I loved it. Well, me and Doug had a couple of hit records over there. Doug wrote a song called Meet Me in Stockholm. So we went over there to I guess, just work it, which we did. And then I liked it over there so much, I stayed over there for a year and a half. Except one winter, it got 35 below zero, and I said, I got to come back to Texas.
Any favorite memories of you and Doug out there?
Oh, man, I got memories all over my mind and on the walls. All the pictures, I miss Doug every day. I miss Freddie Fender every day. In fact, last night I was just telling my father-in-law, because him and Freddie Fender were good friends, and I said, man, I miss that guy every day, and I do. Doug saw him too. Me and Doug talked every day. He called me Boogie. He'd get him every morning. He'd say, hey, Boogie, what's going on? What are we going to do today, So we talked every day.
What was it like knowing him from childhood on and watching him grow as an artist and change?
Doug Somm was Doug Somm, man. His whole life was music. I used to always joke and say he was vaccinated with a phonograph needle.
All right, well, we lost Augie for a minute, but here's Hey Baby, Que Paso, and we'll get him back. We're back on Sun and Scorpio with Augie Meyers. Hi, Augie.
How are we doing again?
Oh, we're doing good.
Okay, great.
We played Hey Baby, Que Paso by the Texas Tornadoes, a wonderful song. I wanted to talk to you about what it was like recording all these tracks. What was it like recording with Sir Douglas Quintet?
Well, I don't know how to explain it. Doug would call and say, hey, man, let's go in the studio and cut some stuff. But we'd never rehearse. We just go in and cut, And it was fun, man. I love to go in the studio. In fact, I was in the studio yesterday. But that's all I can say. It was fun. Never planned nothing. It was just, everything was spontaneous.
Would Doug have an idea of what was going to go on in the studio, or would you sort of...
a little bit. It was like, hey, man, I got a couple of ideas. Let's go and cut. And that's what we'd go in the studio, and we practice right there, And generally, when we cut the song, it was the first or second take all the time.
That's a lot of pressure, but you get to capture a lot of spontaneity that way.
Mm-hmm.
And what was it like touring? Do you have any touring memories that you hold dear?
Any what kind of memories?
Touring, from being on tour.
Oh, on tour. On tour, it used to be fun being on tour. Nowadays, tornadoes are next week. We're going into Arizona and California, and it's just the airplane stuff, all the security and all that stuff. Now, it's terrible. It's not like it used to be. It sucks now, to say the least. I love to play. I don't care where I have to go to play. I love to play, but it's just all the extra stuff you got to do nowadays,
When you used to tour, 30, 40 years ago, Joe Nick mentioned that occasionally the band would run into people who weren't friendly to hippies and rock musicians, and I guess maybe that's gotten a little friendlier.
No, actually, when we first started, we had a black guy who was playing sax with us, Beatty. And going from Texas to Florida, we'd go through Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. We couldn't even stop to get gas sometimes. He'd have to hide in the back seat almost on the floorboard because they'd see our long hair, and they'd look in the window and say, man, we got them rolling bones out here. And if we had a black guy in the car, and they said, man, you better go somewhere else and get gas. I mean, that's what we used to have to put up with. We were on a tour with Little Richard, the Four Tops, and the Chiffons. We were the only white band on the bus. Jimi Hendrix used to play guitar with Little Richard at that time. And we stopped at a truck stop in Virginia just to get some Cokes and beer and coffee and hamburgers. And we went inside to order, 25 hamburgers, 10 Cokes, and, 14 cups of coffee. And people in there said, man, you got a busload of black people out there. Well, they wasn't saying black people. They were saying the N-word. And they just turned out and said, y'all with those people? Yes. I said, well, get out of here. We don't want your money. And they had to get the National Guard Armory to escort us out of town.
What was that like, having the National Guard escort you out of town?
Well, we were all on the bus, man. I had a 32 automatic, and everybody else, all the Little Richard band, some of them, they were getting their guns out. Everybody, we were ready to shoot it out with people. And the people we were going to shoot it out with were white people. They weren't after the black people. They were after us for being with the black people. It was bad. And you still go in that parts of the country, and you still run. Me being long hair and a beard, right away they think I'm a rebel. So they'll sit there at a bar or a restaurant and tell me things. Me and Freddie play casinos all through the South, and they would tell me, "Oh man, we got a militia over here. We're ready to get it to start another war right here in Alabama." I'm serious. You run across all that stuff. You think, man, you only see stuff like that in movies. No, it still goes on. People don't realize it. It's there.
That's very intense.
It's scary sometimes.
Were you opening for, was it just two bands, or was the Chiffons? Were you opening for the Chiffons and Little Richard?
No. We were just one of the bands. Chiffons would open. The Four Tops would play. We'd play. Then Little Richard would play. We opened the show for James Brown, Albert King. The Monkees. We opened a show for a lot of people,
How old were you when you were doing that touring with Little Richard and Jimi Hendrix?
20. I was around 19 or 20.
That's a very young age to get involved in all of that.
Well, we didn't ever look at it that way. It's just, that's what we have to. That's what we had to do. That's what we wanted to do. We had to go where we had to go, So.
And you were doing something completely different than the generation before you. In Austin, when you were that age, Austin was having, a big garage and psychedelic resurgence, and San Antonio was going through something similar.
To a point, San Antonio at one point was really heavy in the heavy metal. Real heavy metal rock, which I never really cared for. So they went through that system. Now it's just like everybody calls Austin the music capital, of Texas, which I never thought it was, and I still don't think it is. It's just part. San Antonio ain't neither. It's just the whole state of Texas, is bigger. That's why it's the music. We call it the music capital of Texas, but it's all of Texas doing it, not only Austin. Back in Austin, even in San Antonio, back in the 60s and 70s, there was maybe 10 or 15 clubs that you go to. They had a band every night, and it was packed every night with a good band. And you could go in there and play all kind of music with the different bands. San Antonio, too. Houston and Dallas the same way. Today, that's not there. How many clubs can you name that have really a band every night in Austin, and it's packed? Not very many. San Antonio the same way, maybe 1 or 2 nights a week. Houston the same way, They have all these sports bars. You can go in and hear one guy playing acoustic guitar, or maybe 2 people playing acoustics. But that isn't a band. I'm talking about a 5 or 6 piece band that are playing blues or rock or conjunto or doing something. It's all gone. It's all different.
Well,
what killed all that is the internet. It's going to be a downfall of the world someday.
What was it like in California during that time when you reformed and you were playing Mendocino out?
Oh well, that's the days of Haight-Ashbury. That was all going. There were our friend Jerry Garcia. The Grateful Dead. They were there. All the big Van Morrison. It was just different back in those days. And I went to Frisco last year. Went there, and there's few places that are trying to make it seem that it's still 1965 in the hippie era, but it's not. It'll never be the same.
Do you have any memories of you and Doug in California that stick out to you?
I was living in California, in L.A. Doug was more in Frisco. Actually, he was living in Salinas. He'd go up to Frisco and play the honky blues. And I had a band called Cowboys and Indians in L.A. at the time. I didn't want him. I wasn't into that because he was doing a little bit of jazz, blues and jazz, mostly jazz. And so I didn't want to do that, and I just stayed back, and all of a sudden he said, hey, man, let's get the quintet back together. I said, okay. You know, he wasn't making the money he wanted. I mean, blues, you can make money if you're the big, big star like Stevie Ray Vaughan was, you know. But if you're not Stevie Ray, you're just going to be playing in clubs every time, all the time, playing for blues. You're never going to make any money.
How was the scene there then? Was it packed every night, every club? That Haight-Ashbury scene when you guys were playing?
Oh yeah, it was always happening. I mean, there was something going on at all the places.
Were you disappointed when Doug wanted to move back to Texas?
No, I moved back first. And then he moved back and stayed with his aunt and uncle, and they came out to my ranch and stayed with me and Bull Verde, his whole family. In the wintertime, moved in. And I said, Doug, we have to chop wood for a wood stove, keep warm. He said, okay. So we got out there and chopped wood, hauled wood in, and they stayed with me for about a month till they got their own house together.
So tell me a little bit more about what you're working on these days. You said you were in the studio yesterday. Is that for the new country album?
Yeah, I'm doing my new stuff and doing that. I'm writing a book of autobiography for me and Doug and the Tornadoes, what we've done. I got a book coming out called Thoughts to Think About. And so I'm just doing a bunch of stuff. I'm just keeping busy every day, man. And I don't watch much TV.
Thoughts to Think About, so that's already out?
No, it's not out yet. I was going to put it out last year, but, you know, it's like I'm writing my book on my autobiography, and somebody come up to me last week and said, what's Wayne doing now? I said, Wayne? Who went? Yeah, your drummer. And I said, I don't have no drummer named Wayne. Then I think about, that was in 1958. You know, I'm thinking, man, I haven't seen that guy in 40 years. But then it brought back memories, so I just sat down and wrote 5 pages on Wayne and in the band, what all of those things went down. So people come up and ask me questions. I write down stuff. I come home and write it down right away. So I haven't actually got finished with Thoughts to Think About, but it's coming together.
Are you doing the country project with a band, under a band?
Well, I did a country album a couple of years ago. I took it to Nashville, and I said, Augie, this is old country. I said, what do you mean old country? Well, it's not nothing new like we're looking for Keith Urban and Kenny Chesney. And I said, well, thank God it's not like that. And so when I got up to leave, and they said, you going to leave your album with me? And I said, no, you ain't going to like it. It's old country. So I just picked it up and came home. I got my own label. I just put my own stuff out, and I sell it on eBay, CD Baby, and I do real good.
What's your label called?
It's called Elstondale Records.
I'll have to check that out. Thanks so much for being on the program with me today.
Well, give me an address, and I'll send you some. I don't think you have any of my CDs, do you?
I have. I could always use more. As soon as we'll hop off in a minute, and I will definitely give you my address.
Give me an address, and I'll send you some stuff.
Okay, great. Thank you. And thank you so much for being on the program.
Well, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.